Hello. If I was just sitting there staring at the screen for a second, it's because, or staring at the lens, I was looking at the screen. Anyway, it's because it froze on me, and I was thinking, what happened? There are two reasons I could restart this. That's one of them. And if I wasn't just sitting there staring at the screen, well, disregard. And the other is, you saw the thing start, then immediately pause, and then it picked up again. That's because I started to hit it without my title cards. And I thought, wait a minute, this is a thoroughly amateur production. Let me go ahead and do it and grab them. And you know, sometimes I like to just vary it a little. There are people who begin every video with the exact same speech, if speech is the right word. It works for them. They make it sound natural. If it's the only video of theirs you've seen, you'll never know it's canned. For me, that wouldn't work because I'm not that kind of a guy. I'm spontaneous me. I think that was Walt Whitman who wrote a poem called Spontaneous Me. Anyway, before we go any further, let me pour something. Let me move that. Yeah, that's about where I want it. Thoroughly amateur production. You can see how little there is of this. If I hold the bottle level, it gives you, it's more like, anyway, if I could freeze the level of it and tilt it. This is Clyde May's single barrel. It is, was it a store pick? I don't know if I don't believe it is. It's a single barrel though. Clyde May was a bootlegger, or not a bootlegger, a moonshiner. The two are not the same. Some moonshiners do bootleg, some bootleggers do moonshine. But a moonshiner makes the liquor, a bootlegger distributes it. Junior Johnson's daddy was a moonshiner. Junior bootlegged his daddy's whiskey. Never got caught bootlegging. The only time the revenuers ever busted him was when he was guarding his daddy's still. But Clyde May was a moonshiner. He come home from World War II. Farming wasn't getting him the income he needed to support his family in Alabama. So he went into making liquor. At one point he did serve federal time for, not for making liquor, but for making liquor that the government hadn't got money off of. That's the kicker. That's the whole point of these laws that won't let you make your own liquor. It's all about money and power over you. They want to control you and extract money from your pocket, which isn't so much for the sake of the money, but for the sake of the control, because the less money you have in your pocket, the more you have to dance to whoever's tune will give you money. But that's a whole nother subject. Allegedly, this comes from an old family recipe. The descendants of Clyde May, or at least some of them, are involved in the operation. Earlier this year, I believe it was in January, they broke ground on their own distillery so they won't have to use anybody else's whiskey. Let me see if I can find where they distilled it. I think I know. Distilled in Indiana, so almost certainly it comes from MGP, which is the big, it's Midwestern Grain Products. They have their distillery and a bunch of warehouses in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And they supply whiskey to a whole bunch of outfits, including some pretty big name outfits who just don't have the capacity to make everything they need. But this is good stuff. This is 102 proof. It is 5 years old, and of course, being a single barrel, it comes from one barrel. And I believe I'm going to have an upcoming video on single barrels. But the question that I'm going to answer tonight is, what is malted barley? If you may be new to whiskey, but if you've been around it for any length of time, you will have heard of malted barley. Now, barley's a grain. I'm sure you know that. Corn is a grain, wheat, rye, rice, barley, they're all grains. But you'll hear that a certain mash bill is, I'm pulling numbers out in my head, but they're not atypical. You'll hear it's 75% corn, 20% rye, and 5% malted barley. Well, you know what barley is. What is malted barley? Well, it's a European term, or at least a British term. And you'll hear about single malt, you'll hear about malted barley. Sometimes they'll make whiskey out of what they call rye malt. And the principle with any grain is the same. If it's malted, it's gone through the same process as malted barley. But what they do is they take the barley and they soak it in water for, I don't remember, 2 or 3 days, I think. Anyway, they soak it in water, it absorbs the water, then they spread it out on a floor. They call it a malting floor, and they turn it over periodically, and it sprouts. And when the sprouts are about yay long, then they dry the grain to stop the growth, and what that sprouting does is turn starch into the grain, into sugar to feed the growing plant. Well, sugar is what yeast eats. And when yeast eats sugar, one of the waste products is alcohol. So the more sugar there is in the grain, the more alcohol will come from the fermentation. Almost went down the wrong way. So malted barley, or any other grain, is just grain that they've allowed to sprout, then dried, then ground and fermented as ordinary. That's all it is. And why we use British terminology over 200 years after we got out from under Britain, I don't know. We have a perfectly good word in American English, sprouted. It's sprouted barley, sprouted corn, sprouted rye. You can do it with any grain that's intact. Once you break it up for the germ or take the hull off of rice or what have you, then at that point it won't work. It has to be the intact grain. But you can take it, you can soak it, you can lay it out, let it sprout, stop the sprouting by drying it, grind it, and you can do it with any of those grains. Now, what is the effect? Well, I've already mentioned that it turns the starch into sugar, which produces more alcohol. It also affects the flavor. Now, I can't go into detail. I'm not any kind of a scientist at all. There are two ways I can put that. One, I'm not a scientist nor anything like thereunto. Or, paraphrasing Amos in the Bible, I'm neither a scientist nor the son of one. So I don't know all the details, but it does affect the flavor. It provides richer, more fuller flavor. If you're not aware, I'm a hick. Now, when I need to, when it's appropriate, I speak perfectly good English. I speak better English than some college graduates, than a lot of college graduates, and I've never been to college. But in a casual setting, such as these videos, I don't take no pains to sound good, I just talk. And when I just talk, it comes out Texas hick, and anybody who doesn't like it, meaning no offense, but you can go elsewhere. There are plenty of other channels. Although, I do not know of any YouTube channel, nor any other place, anywhere, which is specifically designed to take information useful, even necessary to people who are new to whiskey, and put it all in one place. That's what this channel is all about. So that's what malted barley is. It's sprouted barley. And the term applies to any grain. You can do it with any grain. It boosts the sugar content, which means it boosts the alcohol content in the distiller's beer. And that means you get more alcohol out of the distillation, which means ultimately there's more whiskey to go into bottles. The thing is, at the low amounts of sprouted barley they use, it's not that much of an effect on the alcohol. But here's the other thing, and this is the main reason they put barley into bourbon, into rye whiskey, into corn whiskey. It produces enzymes. Now, again, I'm not a scientist. My understanding is that an enzyme enables a chemical reaction to proceed more easily or more quickly than it otherwise would. And the practical effect in whiskey is that the enzymes in the sprouted barley enable the yeast in their working to produce more flavor and to work faster, for all I know. The thing is, this video isn't about the scientific ins and outs of what happens during fermentation. It's just what is malted barley. I've already told you that. And so I'm finally going to finish a video as quickly as I intend. It is just 14 minutes, and so, you want some malted barley? Well, I can't help you there. What I can do is say, here's mud in your eye.